Well, good wet Monday morning to you, and welcome to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition over on Cowan Road in Gulfport. Nasty day.
Morning. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it started out just kind of being foggy, and then all of a sudden, some of these areas of rain coming through.
At least we had a nice weekend.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Very
nice
nice weekend.
It was a nice weekend.
But anyway, real quick, our phone lines are 896-0713, 800-349-0713. If you have a question for the doctors, you're welcome to call in about whatever's on your mind, because today, being the first Monday of the month, it is Open Line Monday.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So whatever you've been thinking about, we'll talk about it.
Anything. And we always have a lot of people call in with different questions. We've had them, call away as far away as Hattiesburg, the Kill, Mobile.
We get a lot of people from Louisiana that are listening.
We do.
We do.
Yeah. Which is great. So if you have a question regarding something, health-wise, right now I'm hearing a lot of people talking about congestion stuff. Chest congestion and everything, and trying to get rid of it, and having been through several rounds of antibiotics. And you always hear that, been through several rounds of antibiotics, and a lot of times that really is detrimental to you. So just a little tease about next week, we're going to be talking about probiotics.
Right.
And what we would say is, if you have taken antibiotics, always take a probiotic afterwards, because it lowers your immune system to take that antibiotic, and then you just keep getting sick afterwards and you never get over it. Well, and we see that a lot of people that's coming in.
Well, people think you take an antibiotic and it's going to kill just the bad stuff. It kills a lot of good stuff too. It's important to us.
And the thing of it is, if it's a virus, okay, it doesn't affect it. I mean, antibiotics are only good against the bacterial infections. So if you don't have a bacterial infection, you're just kind of setting yourself up for, like I say, you kill off all the beneficials. Next thing you know, you got something really nasty going on. Your body can't fight it. So yeah, it's not a good thing.
Because your immune system goes down.
Yeah. There's so many things, and of course, like I say, next week we're going to have a really whole show about it. But when you look at the amount of the probiotics that we need in our body, it's huge. And the things that destroy them, we're going to be talking all about that next week, about what destroys them, so on and so forth. But right now with this stuff, most of it is viral, the stuff, the recurring things. So we need to look at something that can help boost the immune system. We use out of rabinogalactin, which is an immune booster, and really well.
And if you have the real congestion, you can use NAC to break up the congestion. And
N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, it's great for breaking up that congestion. Yeah. It really is.
And then in something like the olivir, which is an antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, antiparasite. So it's there are things that you can do to get over it. And we have people all the time that come in that's been sick already for 3 to 4 months. And they can't believe when they start getting better in a week when they've been sick that long already. Right. So there are things you can do for being sick, and this is the time of the year that we see it.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, really.
This weather going back and forth.
I was just starting to say, weather change. It's just like, one day it's really nice out there. All of a sudden we got a cold front, then it's damp and rainy. And just, you walk out this morning and it's mist in the air, and then rain and everything else. And then you go into inside, you don't know whether to turn the air conditioning on or you would turn the heat on.
Well, I hadn't turned my air conditioner off yet. But I'm one that runs that air conditioner
We
all
live
year
in
round.
a deep freeze.
I do.
Is this a hormonal thing?
No, it is not. I've been like that my whole life.
I'll tell you some great doctor to talk to get some.
No, it's not hormonal. It's just me. I do stay more hot than
Well,
cold.
Kim's the same way.
Yeah.
She's just very hot
and
natured.
I always
and
tell him, you can put on more clothes, but you can't keep taking them off. There's only so much you can take off.
Well, there's usually, like this morning, I'm up putting on sweatpants and a sweatshirt, and she's in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
go out in the middle of the summer in sweatshirts and so on, to get the paper or something, and everybody probably thinks, God, he's kind of weird. But when you keep the house that cold, it happens.
All right. Tommy from Pass Christian wants to know, what does a nuclear stress test consist of?
Well, it consists of using a nuclear substance, or they put a substance in you that...
usually thallium.
Thallium is typically what they use, which they can watch under fluoroscopy. So what they do is they put you on a treadmill, go, and then they get you with this thallium.
Right, they look at what you look like before.
They look at what you look like before, as far as how the heart looks under stress, put you on a treadmill, watch you under while you're on an EKG, and then they put the thallium in, and they see how much of that, is there any spots in the heart that's not getting that thallium uptake due to the excess exercise. And it can tell you if there's a part of your heart or an area of the heart that's not getting the proper blood supply.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is, yeah.
And if it doesn't get the proper blood supply, it can lead to stroke,
Well, it could
heart
be
attack.
heart attack.
What they want to rule out is they're looking for blockages and things like that. And so usually if you have a positive stress test, then they usually want to do something like a heart cath, where they can actually see more. A heart cath will tell you more for sure. There are a lot of false positives and kind of stuff on a nuclear stress test, but it is one of the ways they look to see if you need further testing.
Right.
Usually it's something that pretty much has to be done pretty much before insurance will pay for the next step. And so unless you're having, a crisis.
Is there a sign that maybe that we need to, that hits our bodies that maybe that says, well, maybe I need a stress test?
Well, just shortness of breath, especially on an exertion or exercise. Chest pain. You always hear of all these symptoms, and a lot of times people have them for months before they have a heart attack, and they ignore it. They start getting short of breath where before whatever they did, they didn't do that. So things like that tell you do need to be checked out, because you don't want to wait until you do have the heart attack, which is kind of what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Louis from Van Cleve is on the phone. Good morning. How are you? What's your question for the doctors this morning?
I want to know about the K2, if it causes the blood to clot more.
No.
No.
K2 does not. K1 does. K2 is not a clotting factor. When you break the K down, there's many factors of K. A long time ago, we only thought there was one vitamin K, but now there's many fractions as we know of, and the K2 does not cause blood clotting. K1 does. That's it. That's its job. It's very short-lived, and it does that, very effectively in our body. But K2 does not.
And K2 is very important at decreasing plaque in the arteries and increasing bone density.
Increasing bone density.
Yeah, we've talked about the increase in bone density. We've seen a huge difference when we add K2 to vitamin D with people that are D deficient, because you don't want to just take a bunch of calcium and vitamin D without taking the K2 with it to help. Now, the only people that shouldn't, they do say if you're on Coumadin, you can take 50 to 100 micrograms of K2. The high doses just don't seem to be effective in someone on Coumadin, because Coumadin is a K blocker, and it does probably block all your vitamin K, not just K1.
You're just not going to get any benefit.
One of them that I take is the ADK2.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And we take it too.
The reason for that AD and K2, the reason we put all three of those together, and some really interesting research came out, I think this past weekend or so, or a week or so ago, and showed that vitamin A, they're thinking about coming up with a drug now that takes vitamin A and lets it be a slow-released form, because vitamin A keeps down scarring, especially in the cardiovascular system. So if you have damage to an artery, and you have to have the vitamin A, the vitamin D, and the K2, all three of those, to actually make everything function properly. It's not just one or the other. And a lot of times when we get into trouble and things that have caused problems in the past is when a person takes too much of one of these items. You want things in a balance. That's the way nature kind of is. It's kind of balanced. And that's why we have to have all three of those components together.
We see many people out there taking high doses of D because their D is low, and you do want to get your D up, but you need these other factors with it.
All right. Exactly.
896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open. Richard from Gulfport's on the phone, and we'll get to your call in just a moment. Richard, just hang with us there, and we'll be right back with our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. And welcome back to our Open Line Monday, which is a day that you can call in and ask the doctor about anything particular regarding health and leading a healthier life. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open. Richard from Gulfport, thank you for holding. Richard, what's your question for the doctors?
Oh, thank you. I have a rash on my forearms that comes and goes, this splotchy rash, then it gets severe, I would say, and then it goes away, and then it comes back a week later. I called up a dermatologist. I thought it might be melanoma, but they said melanoma usually doesn't go away like
right.
that.
Melanoma doesn't come and go usually. That is true.
Oh, that's good.
Rashes can be so many different things, and
Sure
really, without looking at it, it's hard to say for sure. But you can have. It can be yeast. We see a lot of people with rashes that have yeast and allergies. But yeast, if you ate a lot of sugar, it would flare it up, and that could come and go. That comes and goes a lot. Allergies could come and go, whether it be a food allergy or an outdoor allergy.
Or a contact allergy.
Yeah, contact dermatitis, something you're touching. It can be, there's so many things. And actually, dry skin, believe it or not, can get so bad that it can look like a rash, and it can even make sores. So we see it. It depends on what it looks like. If you come by, we'll be happy to look at it for you, or even refer you to a dermatologist maybe.
It's just on my forearms.
Okay.
is all it is.
Okay, well,
All right, come by and we'll look at
sometime.
it for
When
you.
it's flared up, come by sometimes and let us look at it.
Yeah, and the great thing about coming by and seeing them is you don't need an appointment,
And it
no
doesn't cost
charge for a
anything.
consultation or anything
Right.
like that.
Yes,
Do that
just
at a
come by,
regular
because
doctor's.
it's really hard to say. With just a rash, it's hard. You got to kind of look at it and see what it
And you're
looks
right.
like.
I mean, it just
Yeah.
you said, allergies. It could be a food
Yeah.
allergy. It could be maybe
contact
contact.
allergy.
some particular piece of clothing that you don't like. Maybe something in your
Laundry.
in your laundry.
We see a lot of people that change laundry. They change soaps, they change detergents they use, and all of a sudden they're breaking. They don't think about it, and they're breaking out everywhere. And the first thing we ask people is, have you changed anything?
Right.
Have you
Yeah.
changed any soap, hand soap, laundry, shampoo? Because shampoo even, I had a girl recently and it was the shampoo because it was running down her back and so it was all over her body, but shampoo runs down your body. So this new shampoo, she definitely had a reaction to it. So
Could be,
you can do that.
Something like cologne or
Anything.
perfume,
Yeah,
anything
exactly, anything.
like that.
I mean, what one person is allergic to, the next person is not necessarily. So it depends on your body.
This is true.
Yep.
896-0713, 800-349-0713. You have a question for the doctors. You can ask them personally on the phone or pass the question along to our operator, and they'll be glad to pass the question along to us. This is Open Line Monday, in which you can call in and talk about or ask a question about anything that ails you.
One thing we were going to get to today, somebody had asked a question.
Oh, yeah, about the e-cigarettes,
About the
yeah.
e-cigarettes.
Remember
There
that a couple
just
weeks
happened to be
ago?
a big
Oh,
report
yeah.
come out about
Yeah.
it this week.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They took rats, obviously, and they exposed them to the e-cigarette smoke or vapor and to regular cigarette smoke. And they had many groups, so they had the control group that didn't get to any of this, and then they had the control groups that got the e-cigarette smoke and the ones that got regular cigarette smoke. And any of the animals that were exposed to cigarette smoke, especially the e-vapors, okay, they had a much greater incidence of what we call virulence or high activity of the bacterial infections, especially
Right,
MRSA.
bacterial infections went crazy when exposed
MRSA
to these
especially.
e-vapors.
Yeah, which is the,
and they found that it lowers the immune system as one of the things. And they said that it's too early to even say what kind of diseases and other health problems are going to be caused by this. They don't even know about yet, because they said it really was a huge effect
So,
with the e-vapor. So
yeah,
somebody
whoever asked that
asked-
question, just if you're watching,
Yeah.
there's a tidbit that
and it was put
just
out
came out.
by the University of California.
University of California,
at
I
San
believe it was.
Diego.
Right.
So that is something that
Interesting.
just came out this week. So we thought we'd let people
And
know.
they actually showed that those exposed to the e-vapor, I think they did it like an hour a day, 5 days a week.
5 days a week. So it wasn't like they did it all day
Yeah.
long. Yeah.
And they showed that it actually damaged the cells in the linings of lungs.
Yeah,
and
it
so
made
on.
cell death
Yeah.
in the lung cells.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it actually was a pretty good study that showed it really isn't good for you.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Betty from Wool Market has a question. Why should we avoid foods that include gluten?
Well, if you're gluten sensitive, because it messes up your immune system, causes all kind of problems. Now, if you're not, it may not bother you.
Right, now gluten is, when you look back into the 50s, gluten's about 50 times higher in most food than it was back then.
Right.
So we're being exposed to huge amounts of gluten, which is why more people are having sensitivities to it.
Right.
And there are people, there's a lot of people that are very sensitive to gluten and some that aren't.
Right.
When you look, there is a neurologist out there, David Perlmutter, who's written books and everything, and he says he thinks everyone is sensitive to it as to what degree.
Right.
So-
Because, and like Janine said, when you go back far enough in our history, and we see that, because of breeding, we'll call it genetically modifying, and not what we think about as a GMO typically, but we have bred these wheats to have much more gluten because it makes it stretchy and makes it more
fluffy.
and all that good stuff. So when we did that, of course, obviously now, if you're a little bit sensitive to it, and now we've got wheat that's, and grains that have like 40, 50 times the amount of gluten it had, say, in 1950. Well, gosh, if you just had a little bitty allergy back then, didn't bother you, now you might have a real big
Right.
problem. So
and
that's
some
why
people
it's
with sensitivity, people always think of gluten sensitivities as hurting your stomach. And yes, a lot of
It
people
can.
do have the stomach and intestinal issues due to gluten. But you can also have joint problems. You can have anxiety. You can have depression. They've linked all that with some of the gluten sensitivity. So it's not just stomach problems that you
No.
have sometimes with the sensitivities to gluten.
And you see more and more restaurants have actually added gluten-free
menus, which is
well,
good.
because so
I
many
think
people
that's
are
really
starting
good.
to show the sensitivity. You don't have to be a complete celiac. I remember back in school, which granted was a long, long time ago and far, far away, but back then, they talked about celiac, and it was like, hey, you'll never see this stuff, you know. I mean, it was like, oh, it's rare. You probably never see it, but here it is, and you got to have to know it, you know. And that was something that, you know, for years and years and years, celiac, I mean, didn't hear about it. I mean, it was a non-event. Now, oh my goodness. I mean, we're seeing people right and left that have either the full-blown celiac, and you can do the genetic test and see if it's there. And if you have that predisposition, even
you should
if
stay away
you
from
should
it.
stay away from it.
And the genetic predisposition, the DQ testing
Yeah.
is what they test there. They don't just test for the allergens
Or the
itself,
antibodies or anything
the
like that,
antibodies or
right.
but there's a lot of people out there. It's probably at least 20 to 30% of the
it's
population that
probably
has
more
at
than
least
that,
one
yeah.
mutation. And so it's a lot of people that have the genetic mutation to where they don't handle gluten properly.
Right.
And so if you don't handle it properly, even if you don't have a full-blown problem, I think it's a good idea to stay away from.
Okay. Well, 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open to you, and we'll be back in just a moment with our final segment and with today's special. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition. They're located on Callan Road in Gulfport, south of Pass Road. They're open Monday through Friday from 10 to 5, Saturday from 11 till 2. And Doctors Jim and Janine Fox are there on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Dr. Mays is there on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Correct.
Right.
But a great staff of people there. And of course, you can get blood work there done as well by their registered nurse, Brooke.
Yeah.
And she's awesome. And of course, all of them there. You got Vic and Tana and Teresa. Of course, Brooke.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're all
And
there.
us and Dr. May.
Exactly, exactly. Great staff of people there that answer questions. The special for the week, L-carnitine.
Yes.
Well, and the reason we put that on special, because I know there's probably a lot of females out there that may be thinking about getting pregnant or whatever and planning for it. And I'm sure you're probably making sure that you get your folic acid. There was a study that just came out about carnitine, and it shows that a lot of females have a mutation that don't properly make carnitine. And we can make carnitine if we have lysine and B6 and C and all these things. Our body can actually produce it. However, there are some mutations that keep some people from making it.
Yeah, more and more finding out about genetics. I mean, that's
Genetics,
another
right.
genetic mutation.
And they show that the females who can't produce carnitine by itself, they have a difficulty, and it's linked to autism.
Yeah, it's a higher risk of autism. And they say it's only a higher risk in the people that have the mutation. But what the recommendation was that women that are planning to become pregnant or pregnant take carnitine or be checked for the mutation. Carnitine's not going to hurt either way. So some people, if they don't want to get the testing and pay for the expensive testing to see if you have the mutation, then you can just take carnitine. Carnitine's also used for muscles. It's used for
heart?
It's known for the heart. It's used for cellular energy. But they have found that in, of course, babies, it works on the cells, the stem cells to the brain. And so if you actually have an alteration of those stem cells to the brain, it can affect more autism. And so just another thing you can do for prevention. We always like prevention, and that's something that you can do for another prevention for autism.
And for those of you that go to the gym and work out, it's
Carnitine's
great.
great for muscles.
Yeah,
great
it's
for that,
great for
yeah.
muscles. It really is. It really is. So,
And if you're especially if you know those people that are on say like a vegetarian or vegan diet,
They don't get it.
You don't get it. I'm sorry.
Right,
but,
because I was in the same research, they were saying, okay, of course, your best source of carnitine is beef. And a lot of people don't eat beef, and they said in a vegetarian diet, the best source was milk. And I was like, well, a lot of vegetarians don't drink milk because it's still from an animal source. It's still an animal source.
Exactly.
But that's what they were talking about. It was the best vegetarian source. And I'm like, that's not really a vegetarian source, but it just shows you're not going to get that in vegetables.
Right.
So you really do, especially on a vegetarian diet, definitely supplement carnitine if you're going to thinking about becoming, and they say you want to do it before you get pregnant.
Right.
You don't want to wait until 6 weeks into it because those stem cells are formed pretty early.
Yeah.
and of course, you bodybuilders out there that don't want to take it, you take.
They do a lot of that.
Do a lot. You use that after a good workout, and some great things
Well, yeah,
that you can use.
carnitine, you have to have carnitine to get the fatty acids into the cell to make the energy, the ATP, in the cell. And if you don't have that carnitine, you can have all the fatty acids in the world out in your bloodstream. They don't get into the cell where they can be used, so we got a real problem in it, So, real interesting, and especially, when it came out about this link to autism. Because if you look at the statistics on autism, it used to be like 1 in every 100,000 or so. Now it's like 35 and every 10,000 or something. I mean, it's some, I don't remember the exact, don't quote me on
much,
that, but
much
it's
higher.
huge. Yeah.
It is. It's growing, and there's a lot of things that affect it, and you know,
Yeah.
you can look at some of the chemicals that may affect it, but this is another thing that they're finding does increase the risk. And so it's something that can easily
That was the
be
University
taken.
of Texas.
Yeah.
They came up with that one.
It was
and,
actually Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, excuse me.
It was Texas
Sorry,
A&M
guys.
that did that one.
Right. Didn't mean that.
We
Hey,
read,
don't upset the Aggies.
No,
Come
on.
they're
Don't
not
mess
the
with
same
Aggies.
place. So,
Not the same place, so okay. With
we-
Texas A&M,
We
right.
read so much research that sometimes remembering who did what research
Yeah.
can be hard. But there was another good one this week on pregnant women and making sure they get the omega-3s and making sure they eat fish. And everybody's been shied away from fish because of the mercury. But if you do that, make sure you take your fish oil because they've shown that to really help brain development in babies as
Yeah,
well.
sure have.
Okay. Robert from Biloxi is on the phone. Good morning, Robert. What's your question for the doctors this morning?
Yes, my wife had the shingles a year ago.
Huh?
It's been a year since she had the shingles. She's over the shingles, but she ended up with a nerve pain from them.
That's called
And she
post-herpetic
takes
neuralgia.
Is there anything that she can take for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
What I say is when you have the post-herpetic neuralgia, and we've had quite a few people with it, they still a lot of times have that underlying shingle.
Yeah, it's
just
still
not-
being active,
It's
yeah.
just not out in the skin. And so we do use the lysine and olivir, which is for shingles. Then we use something called inosine that actually does help with the nerve
Nerve
pain,
repair.
and nerve repair. So there are definitely things, and we've had people after years of having the post-herpetic neuralgia that did benefit from doing this.
That's right.
All right, thanks for the call, Robert. Got a couple of minutes left, 896-0713, 800-349-0713. It is Open Line Monday, so any questions you have regarding your health or that you have, go ahead and give us a call. If you don't want to be on the air, just pass the question along to our operator. If you'd rather just ask the doctors personally, that's fine too. So, anyway, and as we were mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're going to be talking next week about probiotics
And the GI
how
system,
beneficial they
yeah.
are,
Right.
to your GI system.
Oh, yeah, well, to your whole body, yeah.
It's almost like, I like it too. They tell you, those who live out in the country, they have septic tanks. You're supposed to pour this stuff, Rid-X or something like that, down the toilet once a month because of the bacterial stuff in there that it does. Rhonda would like to know what would cause someone's dark-colored, like when stirring a pot or something.
I don't.
Do what now?
What?
Sorry?
What would cause someone's arms dark when stirring a pot or lifting an item? Cause dark-colored spots, maybe? Is that what you're
Now,
talking
the
about?
only thing, I mean, if their arms are getting darker when they live, I mean, think of circulation because it turns bluish color, but I'm not sure.
Are
if
you
that's what
thinking
they're
about
talking
bruising or, because we see an awful lot of people that are on, quote unquote, some sort of blood
Their
thinners.
skin will turn dark colors
Well,
when they
yeah,
do those
they'll
things.
have the patches, the purple patches and so on. If that's
Or
what you're talking
circulation?
about. Well, no,
No,
it's the
that
blood
would be
thinning.
more vascular fragility if that's what was happening.
If that's what it is. If it's that.
Yeah, it's
and
hard
we
to
see
know
that a
from-
lot.
Hard to know from that question, but
Yeah, the question is a little vague, but you might want to try asking that one again, a little bit more specificity to it. But typically, if you're talking about those spots that we see on a lot of people's arms, where it's actually bleeding.
it's blood vessels
Subcutaneous
breaking
bleeding,
under the
yeah.
skin.
Really?
So
Yeah.
something that you can
Wow.
do to help that, even with somebody on Coumadin,
Right.
would be liposomal C.
Yeah,
we
vitamin
have
C
there's a
is
certain
huge.
type of C that it's liposomal, so you get much higher doses from a dose of it, and we see people that really it makes a big difference in that.
Huge difference, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Best thing to do is just stop by the
Yeah.
doctor's office there on Cowan Road in Gulfport, south of Pash Road. It's across the street from the old garden center, the old Kmart there. You can't miss it, the big sign and everything. They open at 10 o'clock this morning. So you can stop by. They'll be open until 5. And again, as we mentioned all the time, no cost for consultation.
Right.
Go by and see them. And as far as, and you don't need an appointment.
Right.
Anyway, so next week, join us. Don't forget, next week we'll be talking about the advantages of probiotics and how it can really, really help your system. So we'll write the numbers down, 896-0713, 800-349-0713 if you have a question for the doctors. Have a great week. Please drive carefully out there on those wet roads.